Welcome to Breaking the Chain. I'm Jacob, and today we've got a special guest, one of our locals from around the area, because Cody is out at Nationals. I have Noah. I'm going to pass it off to you and let you talk a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, nice. I'm Noah. Claim to fame is being Cody and Jacob's local. Frequent attender of the Mythic Games Armory, often mentioned on this podcast. Yeah, started Flesh and Blood around, Monarch and never really looked back. Best TCG ever.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I got the same period, or I started around the same time. What's your favorite deck?
Well, we'll talk a little bit about my favorite deck later. It has definitely become Gravy Bones. Introduction of the Necromancer class is something I've been waiting on for a long time.
Hmm.
Previously, I would say, early pet decks would be like Pummel Viscerai, like Arc Knight Ascendancy, Viscerai, Slogism Viscerai, I think maybe was the best name for it at the time. Big fan of all the brutes, Rhinar, Levia, mainly because my girlfriend plays them. I don't actually get to play too much Rhinar or anything like that, but big fan of the class in general. Dabbled in Assassin a little bit, but for the most part, I've just been a Runeblade gamer this whole time.
The like Viscerai, Slogism, and Pummel brings me back so long. Because I
Yeah, you could
know
blood.
like that's what my cousin was playing back when I started the game, and that was crazy times.
Notable now that you mention it, you and your cousin were like some of the first people I ever played Flesh and Blood with, like good old Alan and Jacob.
From
Definitely some of the first like other Flesh and Blood players I ever met.
right, yeah, no, it was like such a small scene back then too, and especially like at
Hmm.
Mythic, it was like interesting in the beginning because it's like you'd only have like maybe an event would fire like 3 4 people. Back then we also had like Jake coming a lot more regularly.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
for sure.
such a crazy scene back then, or not crazy, such a like small and quiet scene, but it's like fun thinking back on it, and it's like, oh, Pummel Viscerai and just like Bravo, very basic.
It's been long enough now that there's a little bit of nostalgia for those like Monarch Tales of Aria days.
Right,
Coming up on 5 years from then, it's kind of crazy.
it's always like I like hear other podcasts talk about like, oh, like what do you think about what set and what's the best set, and it's like super weird because like I definitely look back with like rose colored glasses on a lot of those old sets now because it's like, man, I really love Tales of Aria. But it's so hard to like think back and be like, did I love Tales of Aria more than like I loved like Rosetta, or even like High Seas is looking to be amazing. So it's like so hard to be like ranking them now that they're so far apart.
Yeah, well, I think you and I have talked about this before, but I think because I think we both put Tales of Aria very, very highly on our lists.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that comes with a little bit of an admission of like it's definitely objectively not great, right? But good memories at the time, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you're at like a formative time in the game's lifespan, so there's a lot of like nostalgia for it. A little rose-colored glasses maybe
Right, right.
for Tales.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about or like mention about yourself?
Um, you know, um, been a card gamer all my life. Like I learned to read by playing Yu-Gi-Oh! That's a fun fact
That's
about me.
crazy.
Yeah. Like I would, whenever I was a kid, I would talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! So much that like my mom knew the rules to the game. Like picked it up over time just
Oh
from me
wow.
talking about it. So I've always been like a huge TCG head. It's like been my main hobby forever. Um, Played Magic for, man, like 10 years. Um, and like a lot of people, sort of became disillusioned with the way the game was going around, 4 or 5 years ago. Um, and I got into Flesh and Blood through Team Covenant, actually. Some people in the community may have heard of them. But I used to follow them for like Netrunner and the Star Wars LCG back in the day, like when I was in middle school. And hadn't watched any of their videos in years and years. And then their one of their early Flesh and Blood streams came up in my YouTube recommended, and I watched the stream and bought boxes from Mythic like the next day. And from like I pulled a foil Blood Rush Bellow, and I was like, this game is sick. Um, Played a couple games of it, and it's been the main squeeze ever since.
That's crazy. I haven't heard of Team Covenant in a long time, and I heard of them from playing Flesh and Blood.
Uh-huh.
That's like, have they just like disappeared?
They were like much more present back in the day.
Hmm,
I think they don't really play it very much anymore.
that's fair.
But they're a retailer. They have to be on top of whatever's new, yada yada.
That
But
makes a lot of sense.
yeah. But this is not the Team Covenant podcast.
That's totally fair. Well, what did you end up doing in Flesh and Blood this week then?
Well, I think pretty similar to you. We were both at the Mythic Games Armory this week at a 50% Gravy Bones Armory deck armory, which was interesting to see. Um, I think it was a really good armory. I think I played one of my favorite games of Flesh and Blood ever at this armory.
Yeah, that's crazy. Was it
The game
the last game you played?
with yeah, getting beating Jarl with no compass for basically the entire game. Getting there in the end was very, very fulfilling for me. I'll put it that way, and a little cathartic after all the Jarl bullying I've been facing during my Aurora days.
Right. Yeah, I actually played Gravy Bones at that armory too, and I played the same Jarl, and I think it was like turn 3 he took my compass. I definitely wasn't close. I think it ended like 19-0, but it felt a lot closer than it was.
I'm pretty sure he was in. Excuse me. I'm pretty sure he was in single digits. I think I looked over.
Oh, he might have. I can't remember. I just remember feeling like it was a close game, and looking at the life total, I'm like, well, he's still semi up there.
Yeah. He said after the end of the game that it felt very close. And, also just shout out to Lee. He's getting really, really good. I've
Hmm.
been noticing.
Yeah, he's definitely getting there. It's like it is cool to watch him, and like I know he was talking about the pitch stack this week too, and it was like fun to listen to him talk about that because that's definitely like something that's not like beginner friendly. So it's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that it was such a
Take a look.
fun like armory, but it was definitely like smacked up. I think we both played the prism there as well.
Yeah, that was foul. It was deep.
That-
You sit down and you see the cold foil prism, and you're like, "Oh Jesus, this is gonna be, this is not gonna be good." And then he starts busting out all the cold foil extended art figments.
Mhm.
Got the fully blinged out deck. He's a diehard prism player, and it's a bad matchup on a great day, and that was not a great day.
Yeah, and then on the armory deck too, so it's something
Uh-huh.
very budget.
Yeah.
And this was my first time playing like Gravy into Prism, so I was just like, oh, like this matchup's probably like I hear it's bad, but like we'll see how bad it is. And I felt so strong in the beginning. I'm like, I've got such a strong lead. I have like 3 allies. I have a fourth one coming. He's down to 20. I'm still at 40. I'm like, this is great. And then the next turn, he comes around and he kills all my allies and throws 7 at my face. I was like, oh, I see now.
You got him
I
down to 20?
or so yeah. I think the game.
Better than me.
Yeah.
It was total wash at my game against him.
Hmm. I was like, I got him down to the maybe not teens. I think it was like 17. Yeah, so teens. Like I got him down to like 17 or something like that. But it was definitely like a worked him down to there, and then at that point it was over.
Yeah, that was, I went there with the intention, or rather the expectation, full expectation to 0-3 on this armory deck.
Hmm.
Uh, so sitting down against him round one was like, this is the start of the ruination for me. But luckily after that, it went pretty well. Um, I was very happy to go 2-1 and still go positive on my score credit
Oh
with the
right.
armory deck week.
Yeah, I only went 1 and 2, but it was a lot of fun. Like the gravy mirror is so cool. It's so interesting.
It, it very much is, yeah.
Yeah, it like sitting down my last matchup was the gravy mirror, which I think is what I think we actually had a reverse. Like you ended on Jarl, I started on Jarl. Oh no, but no, you started on Prism, and
I
I ended.
started on Prison.
Yep, and then you
Yeah.
did the gravy mirror. Yep. So it was a little close, but I ended on the gravy mirror. And that gravy, it's so cool, like having to manage allies, because it was like the start of the game. I was just taking out his allies with my allies, managing his board, and then finally when I got him to low life, and it's like I definitely don't know how to do it correctly, but like getting into the late game, like he got on such low life, I just started going face, and it allowed
Yeah.
him to build up the board and almost come back with it.
Yeah, that was like the game that I played was very similar where we both got into this point of the late game where it was a very tense board state, like multiple allies on each side. Um, and he was on like 4 or 6 life, and I was like, let's just do it. And I threw paddle faster at him, tapped an oyster to give it go again, and he blocks two and shows me three no blocks in hand.
No.
Uh, oh no, he was at two. That I remember now. He was at two, and even just off that first attack, couldn't take it. So I got a little bit lucky on that last turn. I think if he
Mhm.
had a handful of blocks and I just went ham at him, he would have got me. But sometimes you get there.
Yeah. It sounds like the
Your
gravy
opponent.
deck sometimes too, where you like look at your hand, you're like, I can block three.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be blocking anyway. Fight and die like a honorable soldier, honorable pirate.
Yeah. It's so hard going from Guardian though, and I think we're gonna talk a lot more about like the gravy deck and all the gravy stuff later. So we'll move on from this. But it's definitely hard for me going from like Guardian being like, oh okay, I'll just block out a while and then come in with my big attack to being like, okay, I've got to manage this board and I've got to worry about this and like I can block 10 here, but is it correct? Should I just eat their 14 damage and set up a board? It's very different.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you have to have a scrappy mentality, at least to play
Mhm.
that armory deck,
Right.
because your margins for success are very slim.
Yeah. It is still a lot of fun. But moving on, we both went to the same pre-release as well. I don't know if you went to
Yeah.
more, but do you want to tell me about your pre-release experience?
But yeah, we were at Meh, MEH,
Mm-hmm.
however you call it. I was very lucky. I pulled Scurv and Not So Fast in the same pool, um, alongside a Conqueror of the High Seas. Um, so that was kind of the deck was Scurv and Conqueror. Um, I think a lot of people have said this. I think this is hands down like one of the best limited environments they've ever created. I was like a hater of gold tokens for a long time. And it wasn't like an opinion I would just like spout out, but just something inside me that I would think about where I was like, man, this is so like not flavorful. I just didn't feel like it fit with a lot of the heroes that it existed for. But in this context of like the pirates and with how much you can make, especially,
Mm-hmm.
it felt so good. And like being able to pitch into like 3 golds in the end of the game, draw basically a new hand, float 2 resources or whatever. Especially with the existence of High Tide as a mechanic. It's just very satisfying, very fun, and Scurv is absolutely insane. Uh, I think if Scurv had an adult hero, he'd be the best hero out of High Seas.
That's I could see it because like just being able to give go again whenever you want is crazy. But it's like,
And resource. He cheats action points and resources.
oh yeah, getting the free resource. Yeah, it's crazy. And like I know at the pre-release we got our stuff, we built our decks. I ended up playing Gravy Bones, which was really cool. I got Sunken Treasure as my only blue, but you watched I did not play that once correctly the entire night. I did not sink a yellow card to create a gold, which is
Ah,
unfortunate, but it was I remember we sit down for like first match like against each other and you like mopped the floor with me. I don't even think the game was close, and I was like dooming over my deck. I was like, man, like this is gonna go terribly. What am I supposed to do? I'm like, I made a couple changes in my decks. I think I exchanged 2 reds for 2 blues. I'm like, yeah, we'll try anything we can just to get this deck to function. I'm gonna go 0-3, but it will work, whatever. And then after our little like practice match, like the deck was so smooth. It felt so
Mhm.
good. And then we didn't go until there was only like, sorry, go ahead. You cut out for a sec.
Going undefeated after those little changes you made.
Oh yeah, yeah. We didn't, yeah, I was gonna say, like, we didn't go to the point where like there was only one undefeated. I think there were a few in the room, like
Yeah.
4 or 5. But yeah, went undefeated after that point, and the deck was so smooth. And it was like you're saying, it's so cool to have like 8 gold and be like, well, I'm just gonna draw the rest of my deck and find a solution that way. Like there was one game where I had like 8 gold, drew through my entire deck, except for like 3 cards, and was able to throw like a red sloop that had go again into, I think it was another 6 attack that had go again into the barraging bark that was a 4 for 9 at that point. So it was
Hmm.
like coming in for, I mean, putting all that together, 9, 15, 21 damage, which was insane. And then I was able to perfectly pitch stack my deck because I was about to get fatigued too. So it's like I perfectly pitch stacked my deck not to lose the next turn to fatigue. It's
Yeah.
like so cool.
Being able to play like 2 high tide ships on like the same turn feels so satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, every Scurv game I played that night um, ended with Conqueror into one of the HMSs, like 8 go again into 7 overpower, uh, just off of like pitch a blue to a gold, blue, blue, Conqueror, HMS. It is very, very satisfying. And also
It's
the art on all the
crazy.
ships is incredible.
Mm-hmm. And like I say this with every set. It's like I swear the art is amazing every set, if not like getting better and better and better. It's so cool. And like even in the last podcast, I was like, it's so sad that Rusty Harpoon is a 0 block 3 1 attack blue harpoon. Because the art is fantastic. I love the art on Rusty Harpoon, and the gem pack looks beautiful, but it's so bad.
Uh,
So
yeah.
it is like really interesting in that aspect where it's like I I love the art, and it's like frustrating to me sometimes when like, wow, this art's beautiful but the card's unplayable. How, like, I want to play it because of the art but I can't. But speaking of that, what is like overall, like, what are your thoughts of the limited and like Treasure Island especially?
Yeah, I mean, like overall thoughts on limited is that um I whatever they did making this set, I think they should
Mm-hmm.
keep doing it. Like whatever any changes they made to like their internal processes, I think they knocked it out of the park. I think Treasure Island was genius. I think it was incredible. I think the tension it added to games just very naturally, like from the very first turn, was super interesting. I really liked that it shook up um like going first math. Like
Mm-hmm.
typically like sort of not default, but kind of default in Fleshblood, you want to go second. Um, and sort of providing an incentive to go first and try and like push that damage over, I think was really nice.
Yeah, it is. It's like super cool, and you still have like the incentive of like wanting to go second. But there's also so many like no blocks and 2 blocks in the set that I
Yeah,
found.
2 blocks and a pretty good density of like 7 power attacks.
Yeah, like I think even in one of my matchups, I went second. Well, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great, and I drew 2 allies, a 2 block and a 3 block, and I was like, oh no. And they ended up throwing like 10, 11 damage at me, and like so I I think I was down 6 life after turn 0, and I was just like, man, that's brutal. Just like off the rip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did end up playing another pre-release um on Gravy Bones, or played Gravy Bones rather, and one of the games had was going second,
Hmm.
and I looked at my opening hand and it was red, saltwater swell, the like sort of pseudo belittle that you reveal your top card, and if it's a blue, you
Yep.
pitch it,
Hmm.
alongside a blue, a red, the sloop, the 2 for 6 go again high tide, and red battalion bark. And opponent attacks me on their turn 1, on turn 0. I look at my top card and I see a blue on top. And I'm like, man, this hand blocks pretty well. No blocks. And was able to, on my turn 1, swell, pitch the blue off the top, sloop for 6 go again, break chest for 1 more resource, battalion bark for 9. And that was very, very exciting.
That's crazy. I
That apologize to your opponent kind of first turn.
I love saltwater sloop. And there was like I had the yellow one, which was like okay, like right in between. But I love how this set also makes yellows like kind of like sneaky good because I had
Mhm.
scuba as one of my allies. So what I would end up doing if I had high flying and scuba as my two yellows, or not sorry, saltwater sloop and high flying as my two non-ally yellows. That's what I meant to say. And it was so cool to be able to like attack with scuba and sink like if it was early game I could put the sloop underneath when I just pitched a bunch of blues with it, so I know late game I could do some like cool interesting blue combo or draw off all my gold late game because oh, pitch one blue, pitch another blue off the top of my deck, have 5 floating into a gold. Like it was it is so cool with that card. And then high flying with scuba is actually insane at yellow. Like 2 of my 3 games, I got a loop on the opponent where it was like, okay, play high flying. Okay, now send that to grave. Scuba coming in for 5 go again, putting high flying on the bottom of my deck into I think I had Barnacle. So it was like 4 into 4. Was it Barnacle? Oh, I can't remember. I don't think. Maybe it was. It was. Anyways, there was another ally that presented a breakpoint. So it was like 4 into 4. And I only had 4 cards left in deck, so I picked up the high flying, played high flying, scuba, and I just got like an infinite loop on them, forcing them to block with their entire hand until they died. It was like so cool, and like the yellows in the set feel so important. Like there's a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of like one cycle cards where it's like, oh, it's only red, it's only blue. But what they put at yellow feels so important and so good.
Yeah, I agree. I think I give it a 10 out of 10, honestly. I hope the next set is as good,
I do too. It is they found the secret sauce.
for sure. 100%.
Cool. Yeah, that pre-release was a lot of fun and really cool. But moving on from that, moving into this weekend and why Cody's gone, we have Nationals, which is a big event, and it's really interesting because it's on release day. I am glad I'm not there to try and get all those cards. But
Uh-huh.
but there's a lot to talk about Nationals because it's like a new meta, new heroes, a bunch of shakeup. Even like it felt like a lot of the expansion slot cards like have huge impacts in a lot of the heroes. Like the Draconic Dagger that has Spell Void on it is really cool. You've got it's stuck in my head. Like the Guardian one's stuck in my head, and I like that a lot. But like I know there's a lot of others. The generic one that affects arcane damage is pretty strong. There's the Acilio. There's the Earth Block 3. It doesn't even have to say anything else. The Wizard 3 for 6. The Runeblade one's not too relevant. Bam Bam can be relevant. there's undercover acquisition, which can be relevant depending on what the meta looks like going into this. But it's like it feels like the meta really shook up from this, along with the ban. We haven't had like a big tournament since the ban happened too.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
I think Deny Redemption, the Runeblade one,
mm-hmm.
that feels like a card that was supposed to release maybe 6 months ago or so. So a little funny to see it now. But I guess glad it exists now.
Yeah, and I didn't even think about this when I was talking about, or like last week when we were talking a little bit more about the spoilers. It was maybe 2 weeks ago. Anyways, when we were talking about more of the spoilers, a lot of this feels like CYB hate because I heard it somewhere else. Someone's like, "Oh, this all feels like CYB hate," or not all of it, but a lot of it feels like CYB hate, and it's like, oh, okay, the like escalate bloodshed, just putting it down and forcing Enigma to lose a you can do it on her end turn because all of her attacks are pretty much weapons. And her turn, she takes 1 damage and loses one of her auras just for taking a damage. Okay, that makes more sense. Deny Redemption. I guess that's more against Enigma. But then, like, Deny Redemption is definitely CYB hate. Discard this. Heroes can't gain life this turn. The being able
Well,
to, when it hits, like, if you have less life, deal 1 arcane that can't be prevented. It, like, definitely feels that way. Burn Bear is an Enigma hate card. Riddle with Regret is an Enigma hate card. Like, the it feels like there's either a lot of CYB hate or Enigma hate, and I think a lot of it is a little bit late, but better late than never.
hmm I think it is. It's a little bit interesting to see. You can sort of extrapolate from these cards like what they thought things were going to look like at this time,
Right,
and how they were maybe a little bit off.
right. And I think it like exacerbates the point of like a lot of these sets are planned like a year in advance.
Hmm.
So, like this set was being made when Mistveil released. So they probably thought a lot of the Mistveil heroes are going to stick around past this point, so these cards would be able to be used against like Enigma. Like, oh, this is to just deal damage straight through, or like for CYB, okay, some of it's CYB hate, and it would only been out for like half a year at this point. So it is interesting to see like all this stuff that they probably planned a year ago, like finally coming out, and it's a little late in a bit of it.
Hmm. Cool cards though.
Very cool cards. I'm excited for a lot of them, and like looking through them, like even though like some of them are like, oh okay, you can tell this was used for the past. Like some of them are like super cool, and like again, the Guardian one is so cool. I love the Guardian one, but personal preference. But anyways, how do you think a lot of this is going to impact? What heroes do you think are going to perform the best at nationals?
Well, I think there's some things that are a little, set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone, Florian is just a rock solid deck. Everyone knows it.
Mm-hmm.
New, just a rock solid deck. Everyone knows it. Um, I think a lot of people are expecting Syndra to have a pretty solid meta share. Um, I'm personally hoping to see um, maybe one or two Puffins do really well. See if anyone's cracked like a Marlin deck list. But I think right now there's some like I think the best heroes in the format are very hard to displace from that top spot at the moment.
Right. I think the only one that like the only other hero that kind of comes to my head is Azalea as being super strong at
Oh,
that high level. And it
100%.
yeah, it's like we'll go into Cody's pick a little bit later, but if Cody doesn't win it all, I am rooting for New because that would mean that we'd finally be free and I can play my Guardians, all my 8 attacks back in there at blue. So we're so close.
Yeah, right at the finish line.
Right.
Yeah, do you have any sort of we'll say dark horse picks of maybe some less good heroes that you might expect to do well?
That is a great question.
Or
Like,
let me ask you this. Because Valda is legal for Nats, isn't
Hmm.
she?
I'm pretty sure she is, because I know the Pro Quest, it says legal June 6th, which is Nats Day.
Do you expect to see maybe some Valda spice emerge over this tournament?
So I feel like if I have heard nothing on Valda. The only Valda talk I've heard anywhere from the community is from me.
Uh-huh.
And it's I can understand because like one, I haven't had enough like testing to truly feel how like Valda feels. But
Mm-hmm.
I call her my casino deck, which like already tells you how like I
Mm-hmm.
imagine going into an event like that, you really don't want something like that. And I feel like a lot of people have put her off because like she's meant to get support from the Guardian Mastery Pack. Like she is meant to be like getting all these cards like sorry, like I got too many in my head. But she's supposed to get a lot of cards from the Guardian Mastery Pack that support her build to make it more reasonable. Like, oh, okay, I did this setup turn, but now I have a free defense reaction that blocks 5 that like still pitches for blue. I have a yellow instant that I can play the turn before if I have hand disruption or this, that, or another thing. Like, she's like we've already seen so much support come or like spoiled for her coming in this next set. But like
Mm-hmm.
it definitely feels like there's something like even now with me doing all my like crazy stuff it definitely feels like there's a reasonable deck there and she has
Mm-hmm.
counterplay to a few heroes like I think she could be really strong against Gravy Bones. I do want to do a lot more testing into that matchup because Gravy Bones likes to naturally draw, which makes her things cost less. On top of it, she like the batter to a pulp. I did not realize how strong that would be going into like at least Gravy Bones. And I expect
Mm-hmm.
Gravy Bones to be pretty prevalent, or yeah, prevalent and relevant in the meta after this national seasons. I've heard some rumors and some people talking about that he's good from like even like other podcasts and all that stuff. So it's like I expect him to be relevant, but it's like Batter to Pulp is really good, and aggressive decks we always have Spinal Crush. You have Choke Slam into like Azalea or anything that wants to go tall. So it's like I could definitely see something, but it is definitely like a very, very, very untested deck, which like
Mm-hmm.
I that's where I think like a lot of like the you have no idea and I have no idea how she does into the assassins. Not just new, but any of the assassins. Because a lot of times it feels like, oh, I look at my hand and it's like kind of like Gravy Bones. Like I look, it's like this blocks 12, but I can just do all this crazy stuff. But a lot of her crazy stuff, like I'm running Embolden, but that cost 4. You take one blue out and my entire turn's over. Like, oh, you presented any disruption. Oof, okay. Like, it's fine with, like, against another Guardian. Like, you could be like, oh, you're presenting Spinal Crush. I needed to go again. I'll just block it out. I'll just wait another turn. Take the one really good card I needed, look to arsenal it, and wait for later. But, like, the problem with Assassins a lot of time is, like, okay, well, this isn't dangerous yet. We'll see what comes. And then they do something weird, switch it out for a different attack, or this, that, or another thing. And then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, okay, this, like, ruins my hand. So I'm really interested to see how she does in the more assassins versus all that and some of the other meta relevant heroes. And I think the other thing is she can't perform with new. I think like she just auto loses to new like a lot of the other guardians. So something I'm really excited about and I think that there's something that is there to at least be a relevant deck. It's not like I wouldn't say it's like S tier. I wouldn't say it's D tier. It feels more like a B tier hero, maybe back end of B right now. But something like if I get a lot of practice, like I could do some crazy stuff. And there's definitely high rolling. Like you go turn 0, blessing into embolden, drew a blue and another whatever, like embolden, what you do some crazy stuff, and then you go into like turn 0, the opponent did nothing, or you did nothing. So turn 1, they go into it. You block with all cards except for like one Spinal Crush, and then you throw Spinal Crush coming in for like 20 dominate. Like you can get some crazy high rolls, but I think on average you got a lot of workaround.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a little bit of like because yes, she does have like it's known that she has support coming, so I think a
Hmm.
lot of people interpret it as like this hero's not ready yet. Like it's even though she's technically legal, I think a lot of people don't feel like she's really legal. And
Yeah.
also just it feels like she's sort of becoming legal under the radar beneath all this like high seas hype on the same day.
Right. Just kind of like sneaking her way in and no one really notices, which is like really interesting to me. But
But do you have a pick for out of the high seas heroes of who you think might be the best performing this weekend?
it's so hard. I only have played Gravy myself. I've heard a lot of good things on Puffin, and I have seen Marlin get played and like played into Marlin a little bit. I don't think it's Marlin. She
I don't
like
think it's Marlon.
it's like it's funny because I remember before all the spoilers came out, people are like, "She's gonna be broken. She how do they let this live?" And now it's like, oh okay, it's she's okay.
Yeah, she seems very fine at the moment.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
I I think Puffin has a lot of potential. I think some of the cards she got in this set are like some of the strongest cards I've ever seen. Like the Palantir Aeronaut is just a ridiculous card
two for
if you
nine,
have the.
destroy an equipment piece, like
So yeah,
crazy.
I mean, I'm really excited to see like what people are bringing, like what lists we see on stream. Um, but I'm always gonna say Gravy Bones number one. I think he's gonna. I'm expecting one Gravy Bones in top eight. I'll put that prediction out there right now.
I could see it because I feel like there's gonna be a lot of people forcing Gravy Bones just because they're excited to play him, and like the meta's so fresh, it's so hard to know like what's good or. A lot of people might not have the time to practice, so it's like I might as well just go in for something fun, do something cool like that. So I could definitely see a situation where they're like the Gravy Bones field's so large, at least one of them's got to perform well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, do you have I think you and I both agree that we're very excited to see new, cross over that bridge here in these upcoming weeks.
Mm,
Um, any other heroes that you're like excited to see maybe leave the game? Because we have a lot that are like,
like on the cusp.
like dominoes ready to go out.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't know. Like this, there's only ever been a few heroes I've been like cheering for to leave. Kind of like new Enigma. I like even when Zen left, I was like, man, that's kind of sad. Like I, especially near the end, I really liked Zen, but it's like pulling up the LL board here. Like we could lose Dash. I think it would be a surprise if we lost her, but as a Guardian player, I wouldn't hate it too much.
Hmm.
But it would be sad. Dash leaving would definitely be an end of an era. New leaving, I can't wait. Azalea, I'm assuming is gonna leave, and I think a lot of people think she's gonna leave after this national season.
Yeah, there's no shot she's alive in 6 weeks.
Right. So it's like we'll see how like I don't think she's been like super meta relevant. She's really good right now, but I'm interested to see how she like affected the meta. Like I don't feel like she was there enough to really hold decks back, but I'm sure she has like a pseudo Dromai effect where her existing just means you can't play some decks because like Red in the Ledger is really strong. There are some cards that are strong. Like but
Mhm.
I don't know, it's gonna be interesting. It'll again be like an end of an era, so it'll be like kind of sad, but at the same time, I'm ready not to get thrown like a 15 arrow with 3 blood rots on top of it. That just is impossible to block. So,
Yeah. Um, yeah, the only hero that I'm really like excited to see go is new, like you were saying. I am excited to
mm,
see Dash and Azalea go, not because I'm like, oh, get this out of my mind, get this out of my sight, but I think they deserve it at this point,
yeah.
you know. I'm just generally ready to see some of those older heroes get their time to shine and then fade out.
Hmm.
They've been in the trenches for 5 years now. They deserve their induction into the living legend for sure.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that. That's like it would be cool to see Azalea and Ashley for that reason. I
Hmm.
outside of that, I don't know if I really expect any other hero to LL. Like I think a lot of heroes are gonna get a lot of points. Like Florian's gonna be really close to LLing after this season. He's already at 700.
Yeah, I think Florian was at high risk of LLing
Mm,
before they gave him that the modifier that's going to be retroactive.
yeah,
I think if he was earning LL points as normal this season, he would be at a very high risk.
yeah. But outside of that, I can't see it. Oh, looking at this, one Dark Horse hero I didn't think about. Katsu with Bonds of Ancestry back.
Oh yeah,
I totally forgot about him and forgot he existed for a second. But Katsu, I don't think he's gonna LL, but like he's definitely a Dark Horse hero that I could see performing very, very well with Bonds of Ancestry.
he is very close, isn't he? What's he at?
655.
So not far, but
I mean, he has a 1.5
I'm sure-
multiplier now.
yeah.
I'm like looking at this. National champ. Oh, I guess the U.S. gives out 50 points in national championships, but the
Uh-huh.
others only give 5, 10, and 25, which is not nearly as much as I thought. Like it kind of makes sense, especially for some of the smaller ones that have 24 to 32 people performing in it. It only gives 5 LL points, but it'll be interesting to see like what kind of moves afterwards. And it's like I'm excited to see how LL like what becomes the meta. Like, is Katsu actually good, or does he still have fundamental problems? Like, especially once New leaves, like Guardian comes back in the meta, and like Katsu struggles, and I'm sure even with Bonds of Ancestry, he's still gonna struggle into Guardian because it's like, okay, I just need to hit so I can search up this combo card so I can do the Bonds of Ancestry chain. And then the Guardian's gonna just like, okay, I'll block your first attack, I'll block your second attack, da 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 da, throw this one little thing back.
Yeah, Katsu to me, he feels as someone with zero interest in the ninja class,
Mm,
um, zero expertise in the ninja class. I think he seems fairly solid. Um, yeah, I think New leaving the meta would be very bad for him,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I'm just excited. Like we're already in a pretty open meta with everything changing. I'm excited to see how much more open it gets after national seasons because I think it's just gonna be shake up after shake up after shake up, week on week on week.
Yeah, always a very exciting season.
Yeah,
Then for better or for worse, US Nets is going to be a huge open field.
yeah. It's gonna be fun to watch. Like I said, I'm happy to be home and watching it. It's gonna be sick for me to be sitting back and just enjoying it. But speaking of open field, I got the okay from Cody to talk about his pick for nationals. So he is going to be playing Vincent at nationals.
Yeah, a little out of left field, I think. Especially given the decks that we usually see him play.
Yeah,
Um, I I trust his decision making. I think it was probably a well deliberated decision. I just can't imagine bringing a deck like Vincent that at least the last time we talked about it, he said he basically had never played and was just like going off of like the team's recommendation. Um, but I'm sure we'll see one Vincent in top eight with that all caps gym name.
right. I am excited and I'm rooting for him. It was really interesting to me too because he came to like borrow cards for me, and we talked about it actually after the last podcast. He really wanted to play Gravy Bones, but like not being able to be guaranteed the cards was really his like biggest like deterrent from playing Gravy Bones. So he like I know he's like, oh, I got a little bit of testing on it. I think he got more testing on Gravy Bones than he did Vincent, but
Mhm.
I'm excited to see how it goes. It is like it is definitely going to be interesting into the field, and I have no idea how good she is into like any other matchup, but is a super skill intensive hero.
Oh yeah, 100%. Super, just one of the more difficult heroes to play. Also, I mean, she's very, you know, much improved from how she released.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's just a hero that can brick. You're playing a Runeblade, like you can get Runeblade hands. Everyone knows that. Um, there are some inherent weaknesses there that you really have to know how to capitalize on. Um, but if anyone can do it, it's Cody Ready.
Mm-hmm. And like, if anyone can do it, it's him. But it is something like looking at it, like the Shadow Heroes, and this is kind of like the biggest downside of the Shadow Heroes, especially modern Shadow Heroes after Chain left. They just lose 2 games to variants. So it is something where you like going into this, like you're gonna have like I don't know how many classic constructed games it is, like maybe 10. But you need to do well in draft and sealed to get into top 8. You need to win the games that you can win. Because there are going to be a couple games where you just draw hands of like, okay, well, none of these have Rune Gate, and they're all non-attacks or something weird like that. Like, this is an unusable hand. I have to banish one card, and it's like, oh, I have three blood deck cards in my banish zone, but I've got none of my rune chant generators. Like I need something to come now. Like I need to be able to play these hands, and it just doesn't come. And that's like Leviah. Sometimes you like just draw like, oh, I have 8 blood debt. I'm getting close to pitch stack, and then you draw a hand, and it's like call to the grave, call to the grave, call to the grave, and some like random brute attack or like swing big, and you're like, well, I'm taking 8 this turn, and I'm not at like the plasma fit level yet, so I'm just taking 8 and like just it's Shadow Hero. That's like the downside Shadow Heroes. It's like when you hear from like Mansant, is like you will lose 2 games, so you have to win every other game. So it is like interesting to see him take it at such a high level tournament, but he is a really skillful player, so I'm excited to see it. I know. I remember at the armory, like we're talking, it's like it's a little bit of an iffy choice, but it should be. I'm excited. I'm hoping to see him on stream, watch some more of his games. I know he did well at the Pro Tour, and that was really exciting to watch his game. It's the only game I got to watch live too, so it was sick.
Yeah, I was just very surprised that he didn't play Dio. I feel like that's a deck that at least I see him play a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this it somewhat feels like it occupies like a similar space in the meta as Vincent. Um, and also being like a fairly difficult deck to play. But I really thought that was what I expected him to play, just based on the amount that he's already, had the experience and the reps and all that. Um, yeah, I wish him the best. I think I'm hoping he's gonna do very well. He is borrowing my Runeblade equipment, so I hope he does well. So my Grasp of the Arknight can go to the top tables, go on a little vacation. I think that'll be very exciting for my cards.
Yeah, I know he's borrowing my shadow puppetries too. So his deck seems very just like grabbed from all over the
Family
place.
Little family vacation for our cards.
Right? And it's oh yeah, it's I think the reason he probably didn't do Dash IO is because Florian's gonna be such a big meta contender, and I think Dash IO has almost an auto loss into Florian.
Yeah, that was a funny thing. Whenever he came by to pick up my Runeblade equipment, we were talking about it, and he was like, because I asked, why didn't you play Dio, whatever? And he's like, well, Dio has a really bad matchup into Florian. And then he thinks for a second, he goes, well, Vincent kind of has a bad matchup into Florian too. I didn't really think about that. He's like, whatever, whatever.
Yeah, it's we'll see how
It's
they.
not as
I wouldn't think it's as bad either because you can get through the like you have some like you can't prevent this and do some disruption, but yeah, like Dio doesn't have any disruption at all, and like it's the same thing for like Jarl and any Guardian. And like I think Jarl's gonna be there, and like he's played
Oh
me
yeah,
on Jarl like 1,000 times, and he's beaten me like maybe once on Dio versus Jarl.
yeah, it's a rough one.
Yeah, so it's like I imagine it's just a little bit better. Still gives the aggressive standpoint, and there's a lot of skill involved. So we'll see. Okay, we are back. But did you have any last notes on nationals?
Um, do you have like a lineup for top eight that you
Ooh.
would want to predict?
Okay, this is spicy. Okay, I'm gonna predict two Florian, a new. I'll give in. I'll say a Gravy Bones. So we have two Florian, a new, a Gravy
Yeah.
Bones. I'm gonna say Florian, a new, a Gravy Bones, two Azalea.
Okay.
We need two more heroes from there. Let's see. I'm gonna run through the heroes real quick to see what I'm liking. I could see a Kano. Dory. I'm gonna go with Prism. So we got two Florians, a new, two Azaleas, a Prism, a what else did I say? Oh, Gravy Bones. I'll say Vincent. Cody's gonna make it. He's gonna go all the way. What about you? What are your
All
predictions?
let's see. I'll shake it up from yours a little bit because that's pretty similar to what I was thinking. I'll say two new, one Florian, one Prism, one Puffin, one Azalea, one Gravy Bones, one Vincent.
Okay. Okay, that's pretty close.
Uh, one Vincent named Cody Reddy.
Yep,
That's the only one who would make it.
yep. It's the only person I can name too. Yeah, I like the Puffin pick. I do, from what I hear and what like I like the few things I've seen, I do think generally Puffin is like stronger than Gravy Bones. But the reason I chose Gravy Bones over Puffin personally was just because I think Gravy Bones is just gonna have a lot more representation. So like having one go all the way, I could see being a lot easier and better. And I'm sure that both Puffin and Gravy Bones still have a lot of things that they need to work out as well as just getting lucky. And anyone needs to get lucky to make it that far.
Yeah, for sure.
But speaking on Gravy Bones,
Yeah.
a last topic. We have a lot of Gravy Bones to talk about here at the end.
Yeah.
So, I see, and a lot of this is your notes here, but I see you want to talk about the Necromancer general design. Go ahead, tell me what you think.
Yeah, so okay. Um, a lot of people who are maybe some flesh and blood old heads who joined the game around the same time as Jacob and I may remember the lore book from back in the day, which had this whole little table of classes and sort of gave a little bit of insight into what might be coming. Like Illusionist was on there, Assassin was on there, and we got Illusionist very quickly. But the one that I have been waiting on for years and years and years was the Necromancer. Because I never really had a class that I love the game of Flesh and Blood, but never really had that class that I really only wanted to play and like wanted to really specialize in. Um, I stuck with Runeblade for a long time just because it was aesthetically definitely up my alley, and I liked a lot of the heroes. But Necromancer is what I've been waiting on. And there's been a long time of speculating on what a Necromancer might do in this game, because especially if you're someone who's played a lot of TCGs, um, Necromancer sort of you assume a graveyard strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And historically, a graveyard strategy has broken the game in basically every TCG at one point or another. It's a very being able to use something that you're not meant to use as a resource, just gives a huge amount of potential to break the game. So like early dredge and Magic. I mean, there's a infinite examples in Magic the Gathering. Um, and so especially for a game like Flesh and Blood, which is so tightly designed and seems to have learned so many lessons from those that came before. I was very interested to see how they would approach a graveyard strategy, um, especially being such a value-centric game, like getting to play a card out of your graveyard, if that's what they went with, feels busted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now that we're here, we're in the Necromancer era. I think it looks pretty similar to what most people would have expected. Um, where it's an ally-based, board state class that involves bidding the allies and then bringing them back onto the board. And overall, I think they've done an excellent job of balancing it. I think having the prerequisite of a blue entering the graveyard to then play your watery grave cards, which are typically yellows, is a very strong, like, what's the word, tension
Mm-hmm.
in his gameplay. Um, Also, just the fact that there's no looping allies. And so like typically in game like in other games, the issue with graveyard strategies comes from like looping cards. Like Life from the Loam, for example, or Hogak, things that, Magic nerds will recognize right away. The issue with those cards was that they kept coming back. They would go to your graveyard and then you would get them back next turn. And the Watery Grave keyword explicitly saying you get one use out of this card and then it goes away. I think was excellent. Um, I'm a really big fan of how, at least right now, you can preface all of this by saying this is very much like novice necromancer thoughts. No one is a necromancer expert at this point, but I really enjoy how Gravy is feeling, or necromancer is feeling like a brute and illusionist hybrid class,
Mm-hmm.
um, where you're drawing and discarding a lot, but that random element is removed. Um, but you're paying for that lack of randomness. You're no longer getting like that express benefit of discarding a card. Generally speaking, like you're not discarding an ally and intimidating or something like that, right? Um, but it just feels very much in the same realm where like I think brutes are a class that really want to operate on like 2 or 3 action points per turn, and that definitely, but they have to work for it, right? And Gravy Bones definitely feels in that same sort of space where you really want to be taking 2 or 3 actions a turn on average, but you have to build your deck around that. It doesn't just come to you like it maybe does for other board state classes. Um, I will say there is a part of me that is a little bit disappointed that um, it seems one of the main design distinctions between Necromancer and Illusionist is that Necromancer just gets less action points. That's a little disappointing to me. Um, part of me is disappointed. Part of me is glad that it means we're not just an absolutely insane broken deck, so I can play him for longer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, those are some of my initial thoughts. Any feedback on that?
Well, it was like kind of what you said, where like playing from the graveyard is a resource on its own, and it's like, how do you balance that? And it feels really cool and very unique to Flesh and Blood, where they just
Hmm.
made the allies a part of your hand. So not like you're invoking them in Dromai, where you're like, oh, I'm turning this ash that's a part of the ground into a dragon. No, they're bodies that you're just carrying around and lugging around with you. Oh yeah, they're on your boat, but they're in your way. It's not a part of the dirt you're walking in. You have to step around it to try and like fight unless you
Hmm.
summon him up. And it's like in the balancing aspect of like Flesh and Blood, it makes it really interesting that you can't block with it in hand. And that like yeah, playing it from graveyard is like an extra resource, kind of like you said. It's being able to attack from your graveyard instead of just attacking from hand. But
Hmm.
with how they've balanced it is, well, you can't block with them in hand. So it's like
Oh,
it's super unique and cool. Like in Flesh and Blood, how you like balance it is it makes it worse in hand, but you can play it from graveyard. So it's like that like balance of resource of you lose this defensive resource but you gain an offensive resource, and you do get like through its health on the field as a permanent, you do get like kind of a like defensive aspect out of it. But I'm really interested to see how Gravy Bones does with a like heavy disruption deck. Like again, being a Guardian main, sitting down and like throwing a Spinal Crush at a like Gravy Bones, and I'm like, okay, I threw 9 at you. I threw Spinal Crush for 9. And you look at your hand, you have 2 allies and 2 cards. And another thing what you're talking about is like you have to play a blue or get a blue in graveyard to play your allies. And your 2 allies are going to be yellow. So it's like, well, I can block this Spinal so I can have go again, but I won't have any blues. I can't summon any allies. These allies in my hand I'll have to pitch, and sure, I might have an ally on board, but I also don't want to keep an ally in hand. So it's like super cool in that aspect of like it adds that extra tension in the Gravy Bones hand where it's like, man, okay, this is what they're throwing. This is how they're dealing with what I have. How do I get around this? How do I work around these dead cards in my hand? These dead bodies on the floor, these dead cards in my hand. How do I work around that? Because I can't block with these to save life, to be able to work around. And the other thing is like it makes it so much harder to get them to grave. You can't just block with them, put them in grave, and then summon them. It's like, okay, I have to go through the chore of playing these blue cards that discard from my hand, playing these cards that discard off the top of my deck, playing, or like doing all this extra effect, or like generating gold so I can generate Gravy Bone, or activate Gravy Bone so I can just get this ally from my hand straight to graveyard. It's like, you have to work for it, and you're removing a resource, and like, by gaining this resource of playing from grave, you're removing a resource in hand and removing a kind of play strategy. Like you're giving one and removing another, and it's kind of cool how that's like been balanced.
Yeah, I think it's a deck that is just offering endless like decision points, even more so than a typical Flesh and Blood deck that already is a huge like micro decision game.
Mm-hmm.
Especially being able to peek at the top card of your deck, Gravy's ability being an instant. You know, there's so much to think about on your turn, on your opponent's turn. And even there is like, the allies have like some amount of like pseudo block value, even outside of like being on board and eating damage like you were talking about. Like there's the washed up wave arm piece, which
Mm-hmm.
lets you like block with an ally for 2, which isn't great, but the main one is like Blood in the Water, um, that lets you convert an ally into 2 block. And obviously you want to do it from the top of your deck, but even if you do it from your hand, like that's still some pretty good, just juicing as much value out of these corpses as you can.
Yeah, it's like I think that's how it like ends up balanced. It feels really good to like play so far. Like I don't feel broken playing this deck. Like I don't feel like, okay, I'm playing Gravy Bones. Oh man, I get to play from grave and no one else gets to do it. I just automatically win. Or I do like there are some crazy broken things. Everyone has like every has their broken gameplay or their like really strong gameplay, but it doesn't feel like Gravy Bones has an excessive amount or even more than others. A lot of times it feels like he has a lot of really bad plays too. Like, oh, I drew 3 allies in 1/2 block. How am I supposed to get around this? Like, oh, this is a rough hand. I have no gold. I'm just gonna have to eat this and play this certain way to get my hand fixed. So it's like it's really interesting where it's like he gains so much power from being able to save graveyard and play from graveyard, but he loses so much power from being like stuck with all these cards in deck and in hand. So it
Yeah,
is.
I think he has a fun distinction from Vincent, where
Mm-hmm.
Vincent has a similar thing where she can sort of create a pseudo arsenal in her banish zone, like Gravy can do with his allies in graveyard or amulets in graveyard,
Mm-hmm.
where um, Vincent gets to do that at the cost of blood debt, which is a very high cost. Um, Gravy doesn't implicitly or explicitly have a cost, but there is an implicit cost that you're being, you know, playing Gravy optimally. You want to be keeping allies, like you want to have them ready. Like your best plays don't involve discarding an ally that turn and playing it.
Mm-hmm.
They typically involve things that you've built up in graveyard and then playing them at a later date. Um, and that just opens you up to disruption, which exists in the game now. Like, I don't know how much people are going to actually play gravekeeping, but like, it is something that you have to think about, and like that is at risk. Um, and so I think that's an interesting distinction from like shadow heroes at the very least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up Vincent because Vincent does like a lot of similar stuff. I think the only difference is like obviously she doesn't have permanence, kind of like Gravy Bones does.
She has one permanent.
She does have one
She has
permanent. It's a really strong permanent, but it is a lot harder than just oh, I have him in graveyard, or I have this card in graveyard. Her permanent is like, oh, I have to have exactly 6 rune chance to be able to play this, and da 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 da. But it is cool and rewarding, and it's like flavorfully, they kind of do a similar thing where like she summons them from like a different dimension, while like kind of Gravy Bones just has them like lying around and picks them up, or even it's like could be something like, oh, he calls them over, like kind of like we'll talk a little bit more like the lore article where they're like battling on like they're having like a battle and things are going on off the side, but he'll like call over one person to do a task for him and
Mhm.
this. So it's like kind of like, oh, we're in the middle of this like battlefield. They're off doing their own thing. Let me spend the time to call them over here. Like, okay, like I have to spend brain power and I have to spend all this extra stuff to make sure like this ally I see over to my right, turn over, call their name, tell them to get over here and help me stab them. Like, hey, this isn't going too well. I need you to stab this person for me, or da 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 da. And it's like they're like similar in the aspect of they're both bringing extra like stuff to the field, but it is like also very different in how it's approached.
Yeah, Gravy, like in lore, is very much like playing IRL, like Mass Effect, where he has to open up his little like order wheel for his allies and say, "Hit
Yeah.
that guy." Well, that's definitely the vibe that I got. But yeah, overall, I guess I didn't mention this, but these like sort of graveyard decks that I was talking about in other games are definitely
Mm-hmm.
like where I feel most comfortable. And I was worried for a long time that Necromancer wouldn't feel the way that it feels because I was worried it would be too strong for Flesh and Blood.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like everything I've been waiting on to like exist in this game. Um, like whenever that game with against Jarl at the Armory that I was telling you
Mm-hmm.
about, um, or that we talked about earlier, um, I think if I was playing another hero, or like another strategy and experience such a back-breaking play as like having your main equipment piece destroyed on like turn 2 or turn 3, um, that would be like a spiral moment for me where I'd be like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? But in this environment where I'm playing with my graveyard, extracting as much value as I can, I was like a duck in water. Just felt very natural, very smooth to play, and I just has so much depth to it. I think he's one of the harder heroes in the game to play at like an optimum level. I'm just very excited to play this class forever, really.
Right. It kind of like so like kind of reminds me of like a game I had against you when you were on Aurora and I was on Jarl, and it was something where you were at like 37 to my like 15, something crazy like that. But you'd like just marched me down. I'm like, man, I haven't done anything all game, and then to like I'm just kind of playing passive, blocking, defending as best I can, and then to try and keep your tempo, you ended up breaking like equipment piece or two. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think you broke a couple of equipment
Probably.
pieces to like,
Then yeah.
and then all of a sudden like you broke your equipment pieces to keep the game state the same, where I'm on the back foot. But as soon as you did, it was like kind of like what you're saying, like man, I'm so far behind in a guardian deck, but kind of like a duck in water. It's like, oh, but the equipment's gone. That is the only opening I need. I need to be able to present disruption just by playing an ice card, even if it was Winter's Bite one turn. I think it was like I just played a Winter's Bite, clogged your hand one turn, and it allowed me to steal the momentum back and steal that game away. It is like super cool when you have a deck like that, and it just feels so natural to your kind of play style.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, what was your experience playing the Armory deck?
He was a lot of cool. I enjoyed him quite a bit. I don't think he'll be like a main hero, but he is definitely. I think he's gotten to that point where like Leviah is just like my fun deck, and like every once in a while I'll bring Leviah. Like, oh, okay, I haven't done it in a while, but it's like, oh, okay, like let's just play Leviah today. Or like I'll get on like a month-long fix of like this is a Leviah month, we're going crazy, like banishing, flipping, da 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 da. I think he's definitely gotten to the point of where I'm like, okay, he might be one of my side fun decks where it's like, you know what, I don't want to play Guardian, and like it's like interesting because like I like to play Guardian at like such a high level, like where it's like, okay, I think about every little thing, every minute detail, like how is my pitch stack, what like when I'm pitching cards, I need to make sure I pitch this exact card because when we hit second cycle, I need this to come up first, and that means I have to arsenal this one instead. It may not be as good now, but it's gonna benefit me then or more then because this game's going at this pace. Or this game's going really fast, this card's never gonna get seen again. So I don't and like it is like as much as like I know Guardian is an easy class, it is something where like a lot of like my brain power like goes to every single detail. Like, okay, I need to pitch this for this exact reason. This needs to come out now for this exact reason. Da 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 da. Everything is so perfect and fine tuned in my head. And I love that a lot. But there are definitely times when it's like I need to just turn off my like not turn off my brain, but it's like I just need to calm down. I don't need to think so deep. Like I'm gonna go to like Leviah still like has my brain function and push like a lot of my brain power, but it's not like I'm thinking at like 100% brain power with her. Like, okay, well I'm counting my cards to get this exact pitch stack because I'm gonna hit Blasphemous it here, and I'll have a 4-card hand. I'll play it. You know what I mean? And I think Gravy definitely has gotten to the point with how much like even the I wouldn't say how much, but I've played a bit more Gravy than I have a few other classes. That it's like gotten to the point of like, okay, like he might be something where it's like, oh, I need a little break from like Guardian for a week or two. Like I'll pull out my Gravy deck. I'm just gonna build allies and swing as I can. He is really fun and really flavorful.
Yeah, and I think Call to the Grave in the Armory deck was a huge include. I was very happy to see that.
Yeah, it is very cool. I did not. Oh, sorry, you cut out for a sec.
Did you have any nice Call to the Grave plays on your first night with Gravy?
No, I don't think I actually did. I tried to do just the Armory deck just to see kind of how the Armory deck felt. But it's like really interesting. I did not realize how expensive Call to the Grave was because I got it when it originally came out, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting this for Leviah because Leviah is like my side deck. So it was only a few bucks when I got it, and then they were like, oh, they're reprinting it. I'm like, oh, is it that necessary? And then I look at the price of Call to the Grave. I'm like, oh, yep, that was necessary. Yeah, it's
Yeah, the foils were up to like 70 or 80 for a minute.
that's crazy. Yeah, I am glad I already have my playset.
Yeah, I was very excited because the one Call to the Grave in the Armory deck actually got me to 2 playsets. So now I can have Leviah and Gravy built at the same.
That's nice. I find that's like the biggest problem sometimes, especially because I like Victor. I like I haven't played Victor in a minute, but it's like I like Bravo. I like Valda. I have Valda built now. I have Jarl built. I have Victor on the side. Like the biggest problem is like I only have 3 Spinal Crush, so it's like I'm feeling like a Jarl week. It's like, okay, go to my Bravo deck, pull out my Spinal Crushes, pull out my Terra Sunders, like, okay, put it back in this deck. So it's like, that's definitely huge. Helps out a lot.
Yeah, I bought 3 rainbow foils just because I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play this when Necromancer comes out for like $7 each or something like that. And then was like going through my Rosetta like bulk and found 2 copies in there that I don't know.
Crazy bulk.
Yeah, I don't know how they ended up in there, but I was like, oh, very nice. So got the 2 play sets. Yeah, the only thing it does yeah, Call of the Grave doesn't obviously it's like super core. Didn't have any like super crazy plays with it with the Armory deck. I was in my game against Jarl, I was keeping the back alley break line in my deck because I was like, oh, I have to get like every action point I possibly can to win this game. And I was like, there'll be a turn where I'll need to Call the Grave for back alley, get the 2 action points, like play 2 allies or play an ally and swing or something like that. And I was really excited to get to do that play, and then the game just ended. So I didn't get to do anything super sick, which was sad.
Right. It's cool to have that planned out though.
Hmm.
It's like I think I did have like a call to the grave at one point, but it wasn't anything like fantastic. It was just like I need to play a blue. It's a 0 cost blue. Like I'll play
Hmm.
this, pull this ally out for the future, and play the ally I already have. So it's like I didn't have anything like cool, but it was like okay, this is like a cool, unique like fixed point. But speaking about like Call to the Grave in the Armory deck, what do you overall think of the Armory deck?
Um, Honestly, I said before that I went to that armory expecting to 0-3.
Mm,
Um, I'm just like, oh, armory deck, it's bad. I think it's fairly well built. Um, I think it like gives you some pretty intuitive like upgrade paths, like replacing the battalion barks with like Conqueror, things like that. I think overall it played really well. I think the like Armory deck exclusives are insane. Like Sawbones is ridiculous. Like probably maybe the best ally, Sawbones.
mm.
Um, and I have some gripes with the equipment. Um, I think the mainly the boots. The breakwater undertows I think are an absolute tragedy. I think maybe someone will make a list where it makes sense to play, but I think it just feels so bad. Um, I think it's generally a feels bad that you're like a common Arcane Rising generic boot, like absolutely demolishes the Armory deck specific boot for Gravy.
The one thing I have about the boots is
Mhm.
specifically in the Armory deck with the Ulstin when it dies created gold. Like,
Yeah, and like definitely what they're telling you to do with it.
mm,
Um, it just feels so much worse than Mage
yeah,
Master boots is the problem. And apparently in the like gameplay video for the Armory deck, they said that the original version of the boots was that it would give go again and untap the ally. So it used to be go again and an upside,
yeah, that's
which
crazy.
yeah, I would have really liked. I think if they had sort of left it like met me in the middle on this one, like go again, untap the ally, and then it dies. I would have been very, very pleased with that, but I think that's still probably way too good.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, the headpiece is a consideration for the deck. It's definitely good. Um, and the chest I'm actually really impressed by. I wouldn't be surprised to see decks emerge that like the Armory deck chest, the Graven Justicorps
oh, I can't
is like
remember the name.
yeah, it's like I could see decks where that's like the main chess piece. It is very, very strong. Like the effect is very good. Um, so overall, my impressions are very good of the Armory deck. I think it's a great new player product. Well,
Mm.
I don't know if I would say that actually. I don't know if Gravy Bones is necessarily a great new player hero.
I mean, they
But it's a
have. Sorry, I was gonna say that they have the instruction guide now, which is already a step up.
and he definitely is a good it happens a lot where people say, "Oh, I'm coming from Magic. I played this deck, this deck, this deck. What do you recommend I build in Flesh and Blood?" And it's now a very easy entry point for someone who's like, "Oh, I played Dredge in Magic, or I played Reanimator in Magic, or whatever." It's
Mm.
like pick up Gravy Bones, and that'll feel very comfortable to you.
Yeah, so but yeah, I could definitely see it being really confusing for a new player at the same time. Like, okay, well, my allies can't block, but these cards can, and da 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 da, because it adds a lot of extra complex. But
Oh yeah,
I would
for
say,
sure. I think he's a very complex hero in general.
mm, I'd say like overall, I'm pretty impressed with it as well. Like even being able to go like 1 and 2 and still feel like the deck was fun and interactable and like still have some close games in what I presume is like one, a really bad matchup, like, okay, whatever. But like in the second, like against Jarl, being like, okay, I lost my compass, but I still was able to do some cool interactive plays and claw a little bit at the gameplay was awesome. But it's like the only thing I struggled with like gold generation, and that's where like the
Oh,
boots felt like a lot stronger in the armory deck because it's like a okay, I need to present offensive pressure and I need a gold this turn. What am I gonna do? Oh, I'll just summon Ulston and then I'll play Ulston, throw him for 3, go again, and then it kills him and I get a gold and it
mm,
that's like where the boots I think are actually fine in one of your best, like in a weird scenario, like one of your best gold generators, because no one wanted to kill Alston all night. Like I would summon him early on and he would just sit there. It's like okay, 3, 3, 3, but it feels good in that scenario of like I need a gold soon, or like I'm gonna arsenal something that demands a gold, or this, that, or another thing. So like I'll attack with Ulston and let him die this turn so I can get that gold set up. So that's like where it like the boots felt fine in the armory deck for that specific reason. But I think once you get like even Loan Shark in the deck, the boots definitely go down in value because then you are like you're losing a lot of the reason to keep them.
yeah. I think it's not even Loan Shark. Just having the hook
Mm-hmm.
like fixes your gold problems completely. Like in all my I've probably played like 40 to 50 games of like my like CC gravy deck at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and have never felt constrained on gold at all versus the armory deck where I think I made like 2 gold per game on average.
Yeah, I remember there was one game where we were sitting like next to each other. I'm at like low life. I'm like, yes, I made my 3rd gold this game, and your game had just ended. And you looked over and you're like, you made 3 gold? I
Made
made
three?
2. Yeah, exactly.
It's like every gold you have to fight for with that deck. That was definitely my biggest
Mm-hmm.
that would be my biggest gripe with the deck for sure. But again, I think that's a little bit intentional of like
Yeah.
you're a new player, you play and you're like, man, I wish I could make more gold. Well, here's Loan Shark.
Mm-hmm.
Here's, gold baited hook or gold plated hook, whatever it is.
Yeah. So it's just like very easy to see upgrades.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like outside of that, the armor deck seems pretty good. I see the
Yeah,
next. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'll give it a solid like 8 out of 10
Yeah, I
as an
agree with
entry
that.
point.
I think the only armory deck that I think is like generally just better is still the Aurora armory deck, where it came in like pretty strong and just very naturally really easy to play. But like this isn't. I wouldn't say this is like a downgrade. It's just like it provides a different type of gameplay.
Hmm. For sure.
Cool. But I was gonna say the next point that I see you have on here is just like potential archetypes, which I have not gotten deep enough in gravy to have like a good idea of this. But go ahead into detail what you're thinking about this.
Yeah, I maybe have less to say on this than I thought I would. But there are sort of like 2 builds that are emerging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even that's like a little disingenuous. But like right now, I think there's like a standard gravy deck, right? Which is like just sort of like a value game. You're playing like 26 to like 30 blues. Um, maybe like 9, like between like 6 and 12 reds, and then the rest like allies and yellows, right? Where you're just trying to play Necromancer. Like put a blue in the graveyard, play an ally, try and get as many allies as you can, try and string that go again together. Um, and even that sort of archetype has a lot of variance in it just because a lot of people are really not sure like what allies are good yet. Like it's all very nebulous at the moment. The other thing that has emerged as like its own archetype is Leyline. Are you familiar with Prismatic Leyline?
I do know Prismatic Leyline.
So yeah, so Prismatic Leyline it's a yellow generic action, 3 block. Says your next red attack gets +1, your next yellow attack gets +2, and your next blue attack gets +3. And this is a card that people brew with like every new hero. It feels like where
Yeah.
it's kind of occupied the same space as Pummel, where like every hero has to go through like their Pummel phase in early deck building, where it's like, can we make Pummel work in this deck? And the answer is always no. Same for Prismatic Leyline. Um, but it has some very unique benefits in Gravy Bones.
Mm.
Because originally, like the problem with Prismatic Leyline is you have to get the most value, you have to play a blue. Like that's what you get the +3 on a blue. And you just most heroes just don't want to play a blue card. Like you want to pitch them. You want to be for the most part, right?
Right.
And even heroes like New who do like to play blue attacks, it ended up not being good enough. Right? Um,
Because at
but
that
it
point, it's just a 0 for 3, even if you like play a blue and you want to play something on top of that too. Is kind of what I figured.
yeah, the idea, like people tested in New because you could do a blue attack for 4 and then a red attack for 4 also. You could very easily get like the blue pump and the red pump.
Mm.
And it ended up, and that's like a 0 for 4 yellow. That's like decent. Um, Ended up, I don't think making the cut in like any significant list. Um, but the sort of unique benefit of Gravy is that all your allies are yellow attacks. And so if you're already playing like blue go again attacks, like Murderous Rabble, some lists are on Golden Tipple, some lists are on Saltwater Swell. So you get to play Prismatic Leyline, do your blue attack that's like your enabler for the turn with +3, and then you get to break the chain. Shout out Breaking the Chain podcast. And then it's, have your blue card hit the graveyard, play your ally attack, play your ally, and then swing it, and it gets the +2. And sometimes you can even get the red effect also, but that's like pretty marginal. So it's like it's very uniquely a 0 for 5 in Gravy Bones. And it also has the benefit of being a yellow card, which is again, so like you're playing I think a lot of the leyline decks are playing Golden Tipple. So it's like if you have 2 breaking up your hand, you can discard 1 to Golden Tipple. Um, and also it's just naturally sort of a clunky card, which is part of the reason it doesn't see a lot of play.
Mm.
And again, another unique benefit with it in Gravy Bones is if you have to block with it, you can then play Scuba, put it on the bottom of your deck, try again later. And so it feels like a very natural fit for Gravy Bones. I hate it, kind of. Uh, I, I'm,
That's not a
I'm
very soft way of putting it.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the leyline builds. It's just not what I want to be doing, but it is an archetype that has emerged. I think especially the Purple Discord is very high on the leyline list. Like every time I peek in there, they're only talking about leyline, which you can extrapolate on your own what that maybe means about the leyline list in general. Um, but it is its own archetype that has emerged, and I think has, unique play lines that like a
Mm-hmm.
standard gravy deck doesn't have. Um, the other thing that I'm sort of interested in is just a gravy deck that because saltwater swell is already like a consideration for gravy. Um, but I think with him being able to, as the only pirate who can look at the top card of his deck, has the
Mm-hmm.
potential to abuse it um, much better than the other pirate heroes. And it's a block 3. So if you look at your top card, it's not a blue, you can say, okay, I'll block with these this turn. And if you have 1 or 2 in your hand and you see your top card is a blue, you can say, okay, we're gaming. Um, and so alongside that, the big benefit of, or one of the benefits of saltwater swell is it's a very easy way to get 2 blues in your pitch zone for high tide.
Mm.
And so I don't expect this to be a thing, just because it seems, just by my intuition, like a little bit weaker. But I am interested to see if Gravy has potential for like a pirate build where you're like very heavily on like maybe like red and blue saltwater swells and like battalion barks and like um
Oh,
the
the
sloop, the 2 for 6 go again. Just like really capitalizing on your ability to abuse saltwater swell and like these high tide things. And maybe you go down to like 9 allies and that's like your support. But your main thing is just like throwing these huge ships. I think that would be a cool archetype if it existed. But again, to me, it seems a little iffy. Um, Yeah, that's sort of what I'm seeing right now. And again, like the standard gravy deck, like isn't really a thing. Even within that sort of archetype that exists, every list is probably 10 to 20 cards a little different, whether it's like ratios or someone is convinced that Suavi is the best ally in the game and two other people think it's the worst ally and would never put it in their deck, right? Just like those
Yeah.
things are still being ironed out with him.
Yeah, it's very interesting because like I think we were even talking and we were talking about Anka at the armory and you're like, oh, Anka's almost a main deck and like he's really good. And then I was on the other side. I'm like, Anka's like one of my least favorite allies. I'm like, I'm struggling to find a point because I'm like, I'd rather have Rigor Mortis and Sawbones, and at that point, those are my two like heavy hitters, and that's kind of the
Mm.
field that Anka's trying to fill. And he has that like little side grade where like it prevents the opponent from drawing, but there's like a lot of decks that don't naturally draw, and that's kind of like I'm like arguing to keep him. But it's like really interesting because like even just at like a minor level like that, we were talking about like, oh, this is what I don't like, this is what I like, and I can imagine that there's so many different lists out there right now of like allies that are good
Mhm.
and bad.
Yeah, and just be the nature of Call to the Grave just existing makes just asks so many questions of you in deck building.
Mm-hmm.
Like you really have typically when you're building a deck, if you have like six one-ofs, it's like, what are you doing? This is a bad deck. But it's like something you can feasibly consider in Gravy Bones, just like playing those sort of core allies in three ofs and the rest as like one or two. Because you basically have three other copies of every single ally in the form of Call to the Grave. And can just, if it's the time for that ally, you can tutor it up and have access to it as if it were basically a four of in your deck, right, with Call to the Grave. And then also asks you, Call to the Grave opens up back alley break line, and you have other ways to, potentially abuse back alley break line with other cards like Chart or Saltwater Swell. Um, and there's just all these things that people are very split on right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited to see if something emerges from Nats, and if so, what it is. I think the first list we see like really do well is going to look very different from what people have right now, for sure.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see like what performs. And I'm even just excited because I know the stream like is gonna try and put Gravy and Marlin and Puffin on there. Try and show off these new heroes if they pop up. So I'm really excited to see on stream like all these new heroes play and especially in this like real life competitive environment, see how they perform.
Yeah, 100%. The other thing is that saltwater, I have saltwater swell on my mind a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really like it. People, because Swabby is one that I really liked in the beginning. I just saw like swing for seven and had like hearts in my eyes. Um, but very quickly became like, oh, you have to pay three to play him, you have to pay two to swing him. But saltwater swell curves very nicely into a Swabby because if you pitch a blue off the top, you go up to
Oh
five. That lets
yeah.
swing Swabby. You can throw like a loot the hold on there to put it on hit. Um, so yeah, that's something I'm very excited to start testing with. I think Saltwater Swell is an incredible card.
Yeah. That's I was very impressed because like I'm like, oh, this is an interesting card. It's interesting to see how it works. But then at the pre-release that we were at, Saltwater Swell did so many crazy things for my deck, and it opened up a lot of those insane plays that I was talking about, where I was able to pitch into 8 gold and like set up the perfect pitch stack. Where I was able to set up the turn where I got like that, or like not the infinite, but like the loop of like 5 into 4 off of Scuba. Like Saltwater Swell is a lot of like the engine for a lot of the powerful things I did. So I was like super impressed with that card going into it.
Yeah, can't believe it blocks three.
I know.
That's
That's
insane to me.
it is insane. One thing,
Especially some of the other pirate cards in that set where I'm like, why does this block two? And then I see Saltwater Swell, I'm like, oh, here another block two pirate card. Three? Like this card's insane.
yeah, I was super shocked. But it is exciting because it feels like such a cool card to put in a deck. Like, I think when it comes out, I'm definitely gonna like try putting it in. Like, I'm gonna take that armory deck and make a real deck out of it. But I'm gonna
Hmm.
try taking like saltwater swells and putting those in once the armory deck comes out. I'm gonna definitely try a few cards just to see how it feels and what I like out of it.
I also sort of a non-gameplay thing about Saltwater Swell is, like flavor is a very big thing to me in this game.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have talked about this before. Like I don't really like putting generic cards in my deck. Like I didn't play Briar back in the day because she was just like 0 for 4 generic go against dot deck. I really don't like that.
Yeah.
And Saltwater Swell being like the art, just this like kraken or something emerging from beneath the waves. Like that's what I want on a pirate card, man. Like seeing the art on that card in your hand, it's like, oh yeah, we're sailing the high seas right now for sure.
Yeah, and it definitely like in my head, it is like that scene or something like that. And saltwater swell is the idea of you're throwing this attack at them, and it only works if you know how to ride the waves, which is a pirate thing. Like, oh, I'm going
Mm.
into this attack on this boat, but I'm using the waves to gain a little momentum to maybe throw a bigger hit in
Yeah.
there.
I didn't even think about that. I love that.
Yeah, and that's like a lot of times when I think about flavor, I'm like, how does this add to a battle? Like, okay, yeah, saltwater swell, like, yeah, big kraken in the ocean, whatever, whatever. Like, it looks cool, but how does this add to a battle? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, it may be that me throwing this small attack is a layup because, like, I know a wave's gonna come. I know how to fight on a ship. And, like, again, like I was saying, like, it pushes you up and it allows you to come around and throw bigger or, like, you like when we were saying like we're telling the allies what to do. You like you know a wave's coming, so you have like Cuddy Shark come from underneath the guy, like
Hmm.
while he's like so like that's where it gives you the extra energy to do some extra stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that interpretation. You just made me like the card even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where like I get a lot of the flavor from too. When I see a card, it's like, how does this card make this interaction? Like, why is it?
Yeah.
And like a lot of times with like assassin stuff, like, oh, like especially with the early assassin stuff, that's like the contract stuff. It's like, how does this apply to a battle? Like,
No, don't
sure,
even get me started. I 100% agree with you though. I
yeah,
think that's a big, flavor fail to me.
yeah, and it was like something where I had to like work in my head and like, okay, like you're like not that you're actually doing this, but you like slay the scholar. It's like you studied how to slay like a thinner kind of scholarly thing, or you watched them before you went into this battle. And you're using some of their habits from what you watched to do this. And that's kind of why I'm like, oh, you know, scholars are gonna try and use their hands to cast magic like against wizards, and that's like the idea of that. And it's like my idea was like you studied like specifically Kano before the battle, so you knew that he's going for his hand, so you're just gonna go up and stab his hand instead of stabbing like him in the chest. And that was like my flavor idea of it. But like that, I do that a lot when I look at cards. I'm like, how does this work as a card? Like, how does this
Mhm.
art make sense in a battle?
Yeah, I think I could probably do an entire episode on just nitpicking flavor on certain
Yeah,
cards.
I know when the Living Legend podcast was still a thing. I'd listen to them, and they were talking about like uh, it was that warrior aura card or like the warrior aura cards that like your next daggers get these attacks and they have like long swords. They're like this doesn't make any sense. Why is this giving
Yeah,
dagger buffs when they're wielding swords and katanas?
yeah, I was ranting about that
Mm.
at the armory for sure.
So there's definitely stuff like that. So yeah, so it is cool to see that kind of flavor. I see you also wanted to rank allies, but I know at the beginning of the podcast you were talking about one very specific ally.
Oh yeah, I wanted to rag on Shelly a little bit. I think Shelly's horrendous, which makes me sad because I think Shelly's very cute. I think it's a cute name, and I think the design of Shelly is very cute, like this like crab, Mr. Krabs-esque
Mm-hmm.
pirate. Um, and I think the effect is like so close to being good. Um, but I think it's just miserable to play. I think even in limited, Shelly's pretty bad. Um, And what makes it all the worse is that the only Marvel ally I've pulled so far is Shelly.
Yeah, I don't go back an episode ago when I was like hyping up Shelly. Like this was before I
I
played.
know. I know. I remember. I'll
this was
never forget.
I this was before I played Gravy at all or had an understanding of Allied. I played Guardian, so like give a little excuse. But I thought it was so funny because like I had convinced Cody so well that he's like, yeah, Shelly's gotta be good before he did any testing. And I imagine like he put in his deck for like half a game and he's like, this is the worst ally that there is.
Yeah, I think Shelly being the thing that I had to learn very quickly with evaluating allies is at first I was sort of like, oh, I don't care how much they cost to swing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is a like costing three to swing is a huge investment
Right.
compared to the other allies. Or even like Scuba, I was like, oh, zero, four attack, four health for an ally, he's busted. And over time, he's gone like it gets, removed from the list entirely, or like only one copy or only two, because that blue pitching a blue to swing is a huge cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we all know, Chum, Sawbones are insane. Rigor Mortis has really impressed me. I think he's
Yeah.
up there for sure. Really, I think there's like there's Chum and there's Sawbones. And then there's like this sort of nebulous area that's like Anka, Whaler, Moray, like these sort of um
Specific builds or like specific matchup kind
specific
of.
builds that like require play lines. And then I think all the other allies are sort of on this equal playing field, where they're all sort of comparable and dependent on like board state. And then there's Shelly, just at the like at the absolute bottom of the ocean. I will say another one that I expected to be really, really good was Cuddy Shark. I thought he looked just super solid.
Mm.
Haven't been impressed with him at all. Um, again like having to. I feel like so often I play him out and I'm only able to swing for three, like without a resource floating. And it's like, man, I wish I sort of just played Barnacle, you know. And
Yeah.
like sort of conversely, like, Barnacle has risen in my estimations a lot just because he costs zero to swing.
Yeah, and it's like Cuddy
Just
Shark.
looks.
Sorry, I was gonna say like Cuddy Shark definitely has the benefit of being able to add to your next attack, which I can see being very beneficial. But especially like I see his biggest weakness is especially in decks that have a really easy time with clearing him. It's like he was a two card three or like a like best two card four at that point. Worst a two card three.
Mhm. Well, I mean, he like eats four damage, so like he is like a wounded bull. Like if you can pitch a blue to play him, it's like you swing for four, then he eats four damage.
Right.
Like that was why I sort of thought he would be like a staple ally, just because like I thought those numbers were really solid. But just very often I don't find myself having like three resources to pitch to play an ally,
Yeah.
which you would think would mean like Chowder and Swabby have gotten worse as well, but those have like risen in my estimations because you can give no quarter for them, where you're not actually pitching. And then, that three resource cost becomes a lot easier to pay than Cuddy's like 1-1-1. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just broken up so much. It it is very interesting. I actually wasn't super high on Cuddy last week either. I'm also not sure about Chowder. I have not played a lot with him, so I'm interested to see how he actually operates.
Chowder might be the most divisive ally. Like Chowder and Whaler, it's like if you talk to one Gravy player, they'll tell you Chowder's the best ally. Main deck, you never cut him. He's insane. And
Mm-hmm.
then another person will tell you, I would never play Chowder once in my life. Get him away from me. Like he
Yeah.
that one feels very divisive.
The one I think everyone like likes a lot, and I guess like you had the ranking of like, oh, you have Chum and like Sawbones. I feel like the next best that a lot of people have really liked is Barnacle. So you have like Chum, Sawbones, Barnacle, the board state ones, all the average ones, and Shelly.
Mhm.
It's kind of why I
Yeah,
picked them.
Barnacles felt really solid, and that was one that I sort of wrote off as like, oh, this is like a limited filler ally. But just like he has solid stats, he swings for 0, like I can't ever really complain with a Barnacle on board.
Mm. I think the nice thing about him too is like you could have a hand where you have a blue and an ally, and you're forced to block with the rest. You can play your blue and then summon Barnacle and just swing him for 4.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's where his strength's been, where it's like my pitch card's my ally. Okay, I can still play Barnacle and set up for like if I have to block out, still swing 4 next turn.
Hmm. Yeah. For the most part, I don't think there's been any huge surprises in testing allies. Like the ones that
Mm-hmm.
are insane are obviously insane. There's the ones in the middle, and then there's Shelly. I think maybe Project Blue Gravy Bones Shelly will find a home, but we'll have to wait and see on that.
Right. I think another one I've been a little disappointed in is Ulston. I thought he would be a lot better because it's like, oh, the gold generation's amazing, but he's just not threatening at all. So most of the time, no one even cares. Like he just sits there. And if you have a
Yeah.
big turn, you don't have enough action points to actually swing with him. So a lot of times he just kind of sits there. He just looks
Mhm.
real pretty covered in gold.
Yeah, that's another very, I feel, divisive one where like you want your allies to stick around, so the fact that he stays around is pretty good, but he's just not especially threatening. But if he sticks around for long enough, he starts to like really accrue value. He's a very complicated one. I could see him living in like real lists as like a one or two of.
Yeah. I could definitely see like a one of, like a really off one of, where you like have him on the board and he just kind of sits there. And like if
Hmm.
someone wants to destroy him, oh, that's sweet. I got a gold out of it. Sunk some damage. But if he like stays, it's like, okay, block, swing 3. Oh, I have a lot of action points. Get a free 3 damage. Like all that fun stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, like moving past allies, I see that like we want to talk about deck building, but is there anything I know we talked a lot about in the like archetypes? Did you have anything else that like add on top of that with deck building?
Uh, I think we've touched on a lot of things that I was thinking about when I wrote that down. The main things are like I think a lot of people were worried about how much you would be drawing hands full of no blocks,
Mm-hmm.
and that is definitely a problem. But I found so much of the time, um, your allies are the targets. So like once you're in that rhythm of like establishing one or two allies a turn, like you're really not getting attacked that much. Um, And I mean, I'm not going to say it's not a problem because it is a problem, but it hasn't felt as bad as I expected it to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other thing is just like, I think there's going to be a lot for like, especially Dromai players to learn about like how to establish a board state um, as Gravy Bones because
Mm-hmm.
you're, you're not making allies as a like action point efficiently. You can only make so many per turn. They're generally easier to remove than some of the dragons, I feel. I don't know, maybe I'm like giving the dragons a little bit of credit. But like a lot of the allies are like 1, 2, 3 cost health, like very easy to remove. But they don't have like phantasm or anything like that. And I think there's a lot to learn about like um sort of threat levels for allies. So like there's a concept in chess of like danger levels where it's like if you're going to you can make a move that puts your own piece in danger
Mm-hmm.
if your opponent can't like if your opponent responds by taking that piece, they open themselves up somewhere else, right? And I feel very similarly when I'm playing Gravy Bones of like, okay, I've established a like I mean like a Sawbones and a Barnacle. And it's like, okay, they have to kill the Sawbones. And then, if they're only able to remove one per turn, I get to stick around with that Barnacle. Or if you have three allies in play and they can only clear two, it's like being very conscientious of what boards you're establishing to make the decisions for your opponent as difficult as possible. I think is
Mm-hmm.
going to be a big part of getting better as a Gravy Bones player. Um, and then obviously you can like escalate that concept. Like if you have a chum, you can just like where the chum becomes like you have to clear this before you can clear any other allies. Gives you a lot of leeway to like develop really strong boards. Um, yeah, those are just some very initial thoughts. I think for a hero like Gravy, even if I've played almost 50 games, it's like we're still in novice territory for sure.
Right. It is gonna be like super interesting to see what allies kind of like sink and fall because I'm sure like near the end we're definitely gonna have a list of like okay like we might have some people that still like for example Chowder like say Chowder doesn't make 90% of the list you might have a couple but it is definitely like a more defined thing where it's like especially in the beginning there's so much to learn like is this ally
Mhm.
good, do I get the extra value, does it add up, how much does it cost in deck construction. And I think one thing you
Right.
brought up is like the difference between allies and Dromai and allies and Gravy. And I think one of the biggest things was it, like you said, you're not action point restrictive, so you can just create a bunch of allies, and that's where it's like really like she can get really strong. Like she creates, oh, I have 3 invokes and rake the embers, and I have all the ash, so boom, I just created a huge board out of nowhere. I went from 0 allies to like 5 allies. What are you gonna do? Oh, and Gravy Bones, like getting 2 allies is a chore. Getting 3 is crazy hard. Like it is something you have
Mhm.
to work so much harder for to get the allies. But I find it's easier, and I guess again from the perspective of Guardian player, it's easier to clear the Dromai allies than it was easier to clear these. Where it's like this feels like a lot more of an investment. Where I have to like I can't just put a 7 in my deck in any deck and just okay stop your turn. Like sure you had a
Yep.
crazy pop off turn, but boom I'll just stop it there. Just put it on
Mhm.
hold. Well, in
Look
Gravy
at
Bones,
piece
yeah,
of their whole turn.
yeah. Well, it's like Gravy Bones. It's like okay, you developed your board, and if I don't on my turn solve it by attacking them, they're gonna be there the next turn. It doesn't matter what I have in defense. They're gonna be there to attack me.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very glad that these guys do not have Phantasm.
Yeah, I don't think it would have fit very well either because they are
No,
real
no.
bodies.
Yeah, never like a possibility that they would, but like that was a big thing that kept me from playing Dromai.
Yeah.
Was just like feeling like it's so easy to just like bunk my whole turn.
Mm-hmm.
And not having that feeling with Gravy is very nice.
Yeah. And it's like it is cool. And I think the last thing that we wanted to talk about today was going into the lore behind Gravy. And I see you had a very specific note, but did it like I haven't read the whole thing. Like I read that and it was later or earlier today. Well, I was a little busy, but I tried to like read a little bit of the lore here and there. But do you want to start it off or like what do you have specifically about the lore you want to talk about?
I have one very specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and is a I think it's a very good like point to leave off on the Gravy discussion because it's sort of my hope for his next expansion slot card.
Do you want to wait?
Um,
Because I have a couple lore things I want to say, so we can leave it on that. So, if that's a good leading point, the 2 things I had in lore was the where was it? So I have the lore article pulled up. Oh yeah, it was Gravy Bones dying, and then the God of Death from the Trapadahani Empire, like coming and bringing him back and giving him these powers.
yeah, I think with that we're definitely playing with like pirate tropes there.
Mm,
Or I don't know how much it feels like pirate tropes to me. I don't
yeah,
know if I can really vocalize why. But like I think this was sort of like implicit from Gravy's whole design that they're like a crew going after a certain treasure, they die in pursuit of it, and then they rise again to keep pursuing this thing, right?
yeah.
Definitely, I think it mentions that like part of the deal is that he can no longer set foot on land,
Mm-hmm.
which if in Pirates of the Caribbean is definitely playing on some pirate tropes from Pirates of the Caribbean. Um, with Davy Jones, who I think Davy Jones can't set foot on land. I think there's a lot of cursed pirates who can't set foot on land
Yeah.
in Pirates of the Caribbean. Um, yeah, there's a little bit of like D&D warlock in Gravy Bones. Now that you say it out loud, that he has like made a pact with something to gain these powers.
Yeah, and like the big thing I wanted to mention is in relation to Flesh and Blood lore. Like the only other god that has been mentioned is Soul. So to have another,
That's like because Soul is like an Aesir, and there's like other Aesirs, so it's like, are they gods? It's like Solana thinks Soul is a god, right? So that's like um getting into the minutia a little bit. So
and that
maybe this god is actually an Aesir.
that's kind of the point I wanted to bring up with this whole thing is,
Sorry,
hey,
sorry, sorry.
no, you're good. Is the idea of, is this a god? Is this like because, or is this an Aesir? Is this kind of like what like a lot of people think with Solana and Soul actually being an Aesir, tricking the people into doing like worshiping him and doing and creating this civilization around like Soul and this Aesir? Is
Mhm.
this a similar thing where this is, and like also this is a fallen like kingdom or empire from way before, and I know quite a bit of lore I'm realizing, but like there's the third age, which was like during the age against the war of the Aesir. Is
Mhm.
this like before that war? Is this empire before that war where they worshiped the Aesir and they maybe had a more mutual relationship before there was this war? Was this after this war? What point? What like it like brings so many questions. Like, is this an Aesir? Is this a real god? Are Aesir what are considered to be gods? Like with Soul,
Mhm.
and it's like it's I thought it was a really cool point because to see God written down in a Flesh and Blood article is like really intriguing to me because it is like it just the word like God brings so many extra questions by defining this as a god in canon. That just adds like hundreds of questions of like, how is this relevant, how does this apply, and like there is like a main Aesir from what I understand in each area of the world.
Yeah.
So like there's Soul, there's like all these other places, and I mean
Final Dawn.
the Demonastery is a little weird with like Embra, which are like Aesir from a different dimension.
Yeah, that's really getting into the weeds on
That's
the Emperor discussion.
but yeah, yeah. But sorry, getting back into it, I think that was just an interesting point that I wanted to point out. And then the second thing, just from a flavor mechanic, is it does describe like when his allies die in combat, he does have to use a little extra magic to like stitch them together and take extra time because they're all
Hmm.
like guts and gore and everything. So it has to take a little more time, which I really like that they wrote in there because it like adds the flavor of, okay, like when my ally dies in the game, when we are playing back and forth, you turn it face down in graveyard. It's like, why can't I just resummon the corpse over and over and over again? And I like how they defined that, well, in battle, when that happens, the card goes face down under because it's going to take Gravy Bones much more time to
Hmm.
reanimate this corpse, and he can't just do it in battle.
Hmm. Yeah, they take a little bit more effort each time.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that as well.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off there. Going back,
No.
you said you had a good ending off point with the lore, so I'll let you finish it off now.
Oh yeah, this is like not like a lore discussion really. It's more just something that happens in the article. But like at the end of the article, they're like on their way into like the lost city of Tropolodani or whatever, and like the last obstacle is a kraken, and they like kill the kraken, and Gravy Bones reanimates it to I think like drag his ship through the portal or something. I kind of uh I'm kind of maybe probably misremembering. But the thing that I thought was very interesting was that he has to like relinquish his control over the rest of his crew to like have enough ghost juice to power this Kraken. And first of all, I think a lot of people were hoping to see like a Kraken ally in this set.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely was. and I would really like to see this Kraken that they reanimate in the lore article appear as like an expansion slot card later down the line. And I think it would be very fitting to have it be like a just an insane, very powerful ally that you have to like kill three of your own allies to put into play or something like that as an additional cost.
Oh,
Um,
kind of similar to like the shadow ones where it's like, oh, I have to have 6 rune chance, or you have to have that, or like 13 and 6 in blood debt to be able to summon blast within those.
or like there's like the 10,000 year reunion for your illusionist where you have to like remove three counters to bring it out, and it's like a very strong like board piece. And I'm a little getting into like my Yu-Gi-Oh childhood because they were like the Egyptian gods. I don't know how much you are on Yu-Gi-Oh.
I
But
know
like that,
very little, but I've heard of the Egyptian gods.
so like they were like the resource back in the day was like sacrificing your monsters to summon bigger monsters. And the Egyptian gods were like these huge monsters that would require three monsters to sacrifice to summon them, and they were like in the anime like very good, but in the game not so much. Um, and I think with all the like homages to other card games, I would really like to see a kill three of my own allies and use their ghost juice to get a big Kraken that is like 20 with go again or something ridiculous. Obviously not that, but if they wanted to be really nice, they could.
Yeah, no, that would be that like sounds super cool, and I would love that. Or even if it's like, that sounds super cool, and that is a like cool way to like leave it off on where he could get like more support if and
That's my
when
current
needed.
wish for his next card is the Kraken for sure.
That's cool. Well, do you have anything else you want to say about Gravy Bones or Nationals or anything?
I think I've said it all.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining me. This one
Having me
question
on.
I will leave for
Yeah.
the audience. What do you think? Two. I'll leave two. What do you think is going to be the top 8 or the winning hero of Nationals? And the second question, what do you think of Gravy Bones? Do you like him? Do you not like him? Have you tested him? Who's your favorite ally? Just kind of anything Gravy Bones. But I'm Jacob,
I'm Noah.
and thank you for tuning in.